Hey y'all, this is Benjamin Price reporting for District of Cinema, and today I will be talking about a couple of films I've seen that have kind of feel like they've been going off under the radar a little bit. Obviously with the summer box office, we've had some highs, we've had some lows, but I think we're on the cusp of a pretty busy corridor for a lot of big movies, so I figured there's no better time than now to look at some of the movies that I think deserve a little more attention. So we're going to start with... Okay, so this movie is directed by Jeff Nichols, who did Loving, who did Midnight Special, who did Take Shelter, and it's based on this book of photographs that documents this biker club, not yet truly a gang, in the mid to late 1960s. And this movie is really solid. I think that it looks excellent, but the structure of it is decidedly uncinematic. I think with movies that are about crime, and particularly about groups and families that are forged through crime and violence, that we expect kind of a rise and fall approach to the narrative. But this movie isn't as interested in that, and I think is more interested on the kind of, not quirky, but the off-kilter and peculiar personalities that found each other and formed this bond and this sense of loyalty on these bikes. The cast here is obviously sort of the major draw. We have Austin Butler coming off of Dune and Elvis. To me, this is probably the role that shows the least of what he can do as an actor, but I do think it speaks to the presence he has on screen. He says very little throughout this entire movie, which did kind of catch me off guard, but they also shot this before Elvis and before Dune and before we really knew everything he was capable of. But I think Bikeriders, his performance here cements him as someone who is going to be a very, very big deal, just because the moment he walks on screen, the atmosphere shifts a little bit. And it's sort of a fun contrast to the other performances you have going in this film, which Tom Hardy and Jodie Comer, who are both playing it significantly louder. Tom Hardy, of course, no stranger to making interesting choices on screen, whether it be covering his face up or putting on a voice, and oh my goodness, does he put on a voice in this feature film. It's something like a squeaky Marlon Brando, which they allude to at one of the funnier points in the film. And Jodie Comer is also going for it. Jodie Comer, a British woman doing a sort of Midwestern drawl that is... I think this is probably one of the most memorable comedic performances of the last couple years, whether it's intentional or not. I think it is. But nevertheless, everyone in this movie is extremely compelling. I think, even if they're doing different things. Hardy is great, actually. I really do want to give him his flowers, because as much as his performance is defined by big and maybe a little bit questionable choices, whether it be Venom or Mad Max or Bane, I think here he does something that those movies didn't, which is obviously he's plays typically pretty tough, grizzled people who have seen things and been through things and have some dirt under their fingernails, so to speak. But here I think there's a real pathos within the leader of this gang, as he watches what he built transform around him. And he's sort of the soul of the movie in a way, which Hardy rarely gets to be. So it's fun to see a kind of different side of him within this. And I think the ensemble here is also has to be mentioned. We have Michael Shannon, Boyd Holbrook, Norman Reedus, Carl Glusman, Emery Cohen. There's just a murderer's row of people you've seen in things for 5 minutes. You may not know their names, but you definitely know their faces. And they play a variety of compelling characters. There's a guy who eats bugs, and that's barely even a part of the movie. It's great. I think the look of this movie, as I mentioned before, is stellar. I think a lot of movies that are harkening back to a different era try to capture that, whether it be through the soundtrack or through costumes and production design. But to me, the actual look of this movie, the visual personality, has the spirit of the world and time they're trying to capture. There's a griminess to this, and it was shot on film, and it looks incredible. I also appreciate that there's very pretty people in this movie, but there's no supermodels here. You know what I mean? They actually made an effort to really ground the actors in the world that they're inhabiting in a way that I think is more challenging than you'd think. So, Bikeriders it's pretty fun. I think everyone here is capable of great movies, and they made a pretty good one, which is sort of a strange feeling to have. I think this is so close to being a great movie, but Jeff Nichols, to me, his point of view here feels very clear, which is capturing the moments within this wider arc, and not so much the arc that is happening across them. But I would still recommend it, and I think seeing it on the big screen, I think the rev of the engine and the performances will play really well in the multiplex. So yeah, I would say go see this. Okay, next up. So, unlike the Bikeriders, this is a decidedly uncinematic film. I think the thing that warrants the most praise for this movie is how it kind of strips everything down. This was based on a play, which I kept thinking throughout the movie. I go, this was either a play or a short film. And I think that is this movie's central flaw. I do want to say, before I address what I didn't like, I think that Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn are both really, really great in this movie. And I think also credit to the director, this is her debut feature, that she just knows how to shoot these two actors, and I think really bring out the best from them. This is the best I've seen Dakota Johnson, an actress who I find who doesn't always have the widest register. I mean, Madam Web was just this year. It's kind of hard to come back from that. But I thought here that I just felt everything. I saw her vulnerability. I saw her strength. I think she finds a way to make these people the focus. There's never even really much exploring of the space that they're in. This movie follows a woman who is on her way back from JFK Airport, and she gets in a taxi driven by Sean Penn, and a taxi driver played by Sean Penn, and he drives her home, and they proceed to have a wide-ranging discussion about her past and his and her current problems and how she might solve them, and the funk that she's in and how she might get out of it, and where they're coming from and where they want to go. And that movie on paper sounds excellent. I think for 90 minutes it is a tall order to make that entirely engaging for a feature-length runtime, but I have to respect. I think even though it strips things down to the bare essentials, you really just have two actors and a lot of ground to cover script-wise. I think that, to me, the movie felt a little overly manicured in the way it looks. I just think it looked a little too nice, which feels like a weird criticism. I just think that it sort of took me out of... I couldn't help but feel that these were two movie stars in a car together, which I think detracts from the experience that the setup of this movie grants, which is basically this, like, fully opening up, these two people fully opening up to one another, and it's not always pretty, and it can even get a little ugly, but that they come out of it with respect and admiration for one another and the problems they face. This to me feels like a movie very much in the spirit of Lost in Translation, a little bit like Past Lives, in terms of what it's striving to do, but it does not reach the same heights. So I would still recommend this movie for the performances, and I also gotta say Sean Penn is excellent in this movie. I think what the director here brings out of his eyes, they're just like this, like these marbles of regret and wisdom, and whatever is needed, he provides. And I think I was really, really, really taken out by his performance here. So I would say Daddio, I'd give it a modest recommendation. But if you're scrolling one night and you come across it, I would say give it a shot if this sounds like it's up your alley. Alright, well that's going to be all for me today. There's a lot of stuff coming out, so I will be posting here more and more as the summer continues. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.